Hello, everyone, and welcome to Auto Asphyxiation. It's Lark,
And
and
Kimberly.
that's right. We're back again. We'll be back every single week for the rest of your life. Okay, I don't know. I don't really know if that's true or not. Um, but today we're going to kind of talk about like what our project is. It is our project is around feminist urbanism, and the thing is that within urbanism there are not that many um media projects or magazines that are essentially feminist in nature. Just because there's a woman who's in charge or a woman who's an editor doesn't mean it's feminist. So ours is a political lens, which is really important. Is that we're looking at feminist urbanism, and for that we kind of started this new project where we're doing the feminist urbanist or fun word of the day, and then we kind of like talk about things that are like things that impact people, but kind of like putting a name to it, because a lot of times putting a name to something really helps. But kind of going back to urban media, I remember, and the thing is that then Kimberly's going to share some of her stories. I remember when I first, I was doing the bus bench and Streets Blogs came out, which is based in New York, but we had one called LA Streets Blog. And I remember when I would go and talk to people on the actual, because back then we didn't have Facebook, we had comments on blogs, and people would call me a stupid bitch, tell me to shut up, you're a slut, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes they would actually call me racial slurs. And these are people who kind of like, this was the aughts. So it wasn't like these are people who are necessarily strangers. These are people who kind of, we were in the same scene and they just kind of like shut up. And essentially, were very, really aggressive. And it was weird. That kind of lasted up until they decided to give grants for people of color. Then all of a sudden, all of the grants, all of the urban focused blogs and medias were like, oh, now we want to talk to people of color and women. What do you think? But before that, it was totally just aggro, very 90s aughts, aggro, DIY scene, punk scene, hip hop scene, very aggressive. And essentially, what ends up happening is that you end up having the situation where we're talking about women end up being put in two categories: motherhood and safety. So it's like talking about being a mom and like your kids being safe and you being safe. Or the other one is, look, even though I have a vagina, I can stomp you out with my wingtips. It's just like, whoa, that's a really, narrow binary of who you could be. And I feel like we feel like there are people who are in between that or on a different planet from that. Let's like not say like because that's a horrible thought that's something that you'd have to be like a, either handmaiden or Gordon Gecko, and you're between there. All those options, even anything in between there, are horrible. So that was kind of like some of my anecdotes. Like, do you have any experiences? I mean, even currently now, Kimberly, you experience stuff online, and
Oh, somebody called me a Holocaust denier the other day. I
wow.
s- and I was just like, I'm Jewish. Like, I don't understand. Like, and I didn't even, it wasn't even a conversation about Palestine or Israel or Jews at all. I think it was having to do with tariffs. And I made a comment and somebody said, "You're a Holocaust denier." And I was like, okay. Like, that's a really weird left wing slur you got there for me, but you couldn't be more wrong.
Well, no, but I mean, also too, just like you say things and then you get banned. Like you've gotten banned
Oh,
from like social media like several times. Like you get
yeah.
banned all the time for like
I'm
making
always in
comments.
Facebook jail. Yeah, no, I'm a recidivist in Facebook jail. I can make a comment like I've reported blatant Nazi imagery, blatant Nazi commentary, and I always get like, "Oh, we understand that you don't like this, but it doesn't go against our community standards." But if you, as a woman, tell a white man to shut up or attack them personally in the way that they attack us, I generally get a ban for at least a week. Usually, I'm usually like banned from groups and messages, it's been a while since I've had a full on Facebook ban.
Well, I mean, I think this is really important because the media is such an important way that we get our messages out. And it almost seems like in regards to like funding, in regards to support for media for things that women are doing, it's like, okay, reproduction the conversation about reproduction rights is really important. It's really important. The conversations about street harassment, very important. But to me, I feel like there is feminism that as a feminist lens that can be put into every single part of our life. And it seems like in a way, it's like they view urbanism as a guy as a guy domain. It's not a woman domain. It's like, oh, so are you talking about street harassment? You're like, no, I'm talking about, planning. I'm talking about transportation. I'm talking about housing. I'm talking about labor. And it's like, do women have jobs? Yeah, women do have actual jobs. And well, I know you have to get somewhere. Your baby needs to get somewhere. Like, every single woman doesn't also have children. And the thing is, this is that even if women didn't have children, you still should consider them as human beings. This whole idea, like, oh, well, we have to care about women because they're the mother of our children. Well, what if the person's not the mother of your child? What if, it's kind of, these virtual spaces essentially ghettoizes women into certain categories, into certain conversations. And that's why when like people like Kimberly, when you're talking about international politics, when you're talking about economics, people are kind of like, you're out of your lane. Like, what are you doing? You know?
Exactly, exactly. It's like I couldn't read and research something outside of my wheelhouse and learn about it. Like it's not possible because I am just a woman and I'm just here to give you children.
And I think the thing I think is really bizarre for me is like, you know, I look at a lot of white men intellectuals, and they have, some of them are high school dropouts, some of them are college dropouts, a lot of them have BA degrees, and all of a sudden they're intellectuals and they're well respected and they're writing for the New Yorker and they're doing books, they're doing this. And if you look at women, it's like you have to have a PhD, a tenured job. Like, what is this deal where it's like, if you're an intellectual and you're a woman, or if you're a woman and double if you're like a woman who is a person of color, there's like this weird expectation, like, well, do you have a PhD in tenure? Why don't white men like Joe Rogan? Who the hell is he? Like, he just popped out the trash can, and everybody's like, well, he's really saying some important things. And I even think about, yes, David Hogg did go to Harvard, but he had a BA degree. He's a BA, and he kind of just got out of school, and now it's like he's a vice chair of the DNC. There's no way a woman a 25-year-old woman with his credentials would be the vice chair of the DNC. And I'm
No.
not, and I mean, and people are kind of like, oh, it's just about jealousy. And you know what? Yeah, maybe I am jealous. Why is that wrong? Why is that wrong for us to actually be like, why is this the criteria if you are a woman? Why is it such of a higher bar than for guys who are doing the exact same thing?
Exactly, exactly. Why isn't AOC the vice chair of the DNC? She's the one who's getting out there and like really talking about Trump and what's happening. Like I agree that what David Hogg said, that the DNC needs some younger blood and some more progressive ideology, but I don't think David Hogg has progressive ideology nearly as much as AOC and Bernie Sanders do.
Well, that's the thing too. It's just like, we need a variety of people, and it seems like to me within urbanism, variety of people means to them, oh, a young white guy from LA, a middle-aged white guy from Boston, oh, an older white guy from New York. Like that's their idea of diversity. And especially now that now that it's like Trump is president, it seems like this very kind of like this idea, like, well, we really don't need to do that now. We don't want to like upset the administration. I hope that this is the vibe that I'm getting now in regards to that is not real. Like, I'm like, okay, am I getting this feeling that we're trying to just, oh, we don't have to do diversity anymore because this new administration is not into it and we still want to have urbanism. And I'm like, the only way you could have urbanism and appeal to this administration is if you brought back Jim Crow.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And for my for my point, I live every moment trying to irritate this administration as much as humanly possible. So, and capitulation gets you nowhere. It just gets you on the last trains.
Exactly. And I think this is I mean, the thing about urbanism is that, the history of it is, there's a lot of socialist history with urbanism because you're sharing, you use, number one, you're using public transit. You're sharing your where you live, like you're living in cooperatives, you're living in and housing that they had public housing. Like public housing in the United States used to be like public housing in the UK. It used to be very nice. And so you're sharing responsibilities in regards to, you're sharing food, you're sharing socialization, you're sharing a lot of things. And it is so for you to try to have this urbanism, but then have the single family home, mom at home value, it's not going to be urbanism. It's going to be something different. So if you love bicycles, if you love public transit, if you love dense housing, you are going to have to actually confront the fact that this administration is going to have a problem with that because it goes against everything that they believe in. And but here's another thing too. I remember one time I was on this show and talking about sexual harassment online. And one of the things I said was, I think a lot of these people who were coming after me were robots. They were bots. And because the thing is that we kind of have this idea like, oh yeah, we really want to kind of believe it's like this person, because it's easier to make, kind of get angry, easier to get angry at a person than a bot. But the thing is that it shows you how hegemony uses technology to like spread like this kind of like disease of like sexism, like racism, nationalism. It uses that, and I don't think people think it's an actual real thing. I mean, if you look at AI and how AI is being used, why would you think that bots couldn't be used in the same way? I mean, that technology is older than like the people who created it were testing it out, doing things in regards to things on social media, on Twitter, on things like that. So I know you're gonna say something.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to me that anybody would deny the existence of bots when, I mean, there's photographs all over the place online that you can look up. Like I had a discussion with my stepson last week about bot farms and how they push certain narratives and what to look out for when you're online and you're in comment spaces and things like that, because it's very, very lucrative for the people that are running these bot farms. So yes, they exist, and they're I would say they're probably a larger percentage of the negative commentary on the internet than we even would imagine.
And I think that's really important because I think a lot of times when we're, that was kind of like the thing that I was kind of bringing up when I was on this show. I was kind of saying, I don't think most men think this way, but I think a lot of bots do. And the thing is that kind of sows this division between us and gender, because we think like, oh, all these people are harassing me, all these things are happening. Now, here's the thing: sexism is happening. There are institutions that are happening that are denying us money, denying us opportunities, denying us access, but also like, but these are people who have power. Let's just hegemony. So a lot of hegemony are men, and they do this. But regular dudes, like, are there really like the thing? I think the thing is that the people that we think are like losers, they're living in like the basement of their grandmother's house, and they're like just sitting there just making fun of like women and saying, I think those are bots. I think the vast majority of those are bots, and I think that we kind of get angry at that guy. That guy is not even a real guy. I think that guy is a bot. and I think the guy kind of like with in I think in it might even work in a different way in regards to men, and like how, oh, we these women all hate us, etc., etc. And yet we don't get upset with the people who have a lot of money, the people who are the publishers, the people who own the social media companies, the people who own the, you know, the means of distribution, the, you know, the means of production. We don't get angry at those people. We get angry at people who are our neighbors. We get angry at people who are like, oh, people who are like in the third party. We get angry at people who are maybe our Republican, not mine, but our Republican, somebody's Republican uncle or something like that. And it's like, okay, what is he really doing? Is he really on Facebook saying, you know, oh, we hate you, you're a slut? I mean, is he really doing that? Probably not. That's probably going to be a bot.
My Republican uncle was.
Okay, there are people who are doing it, but like, you know, I think we should also keep in mind that, you know, the amount of money that we are up against. I think that's something that we especially progressives, I think we underestimate the amount of money and power behind the message, behind conservative messages. I mean, we are up against people who have billions of dollars to burn, not just, you know, I think about Air America, and I think about how Air America was like, we need to make a profit, we need to make a profit. And then I think about, you know, Rupert Murdoch. He didn't care if he was making a profit. He was losing millions of dollars for a decade because he knew that in the end it would be worth it to own the message. And so we're competing against people who have the means and the resources to spend millions of dollars over decades just to win.
It's the same thing with Jeff Bezos and Amazon when the Kindle first came out. He underpriced the Kindle to below production costs, and he lost a tremendous amount of money. But look at the power that Amazon has now over everybody's life.
I mean, exactly. And I think that is the thing that I think a lot of times we miss. We're always talking about progressives. We're always talking, well, can we make it profitable? Guess what? People on the right don't care about profitability. Like, I think about the fact that at one point the unions could have owned some kind of it was some kind of public station that was for sale, and they were like, oh, I don't know if that's profitable, et cetera, et cetera. But think about the power they would have had they owned a like PBS was owned by the unions. Think about how much power that would have granted them, and how they could have used that as a fundraising tool. I think about the opportunities lost because we're just like, well, that's not going to be profitable. When people who are fascists, people on the right, they don't care about if it's profitable. They understand that power is not about making money. I mean, it's part of money, it's part of it, but that's not your main goal isn't profit. And I think that is the sad thing about a lot of people.
Your main goal is to own the narrative.
Exactly. The main goal is to own the narrative. And I think that this is why I think, you know, our project, our Feminist Urbanism project, is so important, because it's so many times when we're talking about urbanism, the things about people who are historically excluded, marginalized people, it gets like pasted on the background, pasted on later. Like, oh, look, we created all this stuff. Oh, people who have wheelchairs can't use it. Oh, we'll just add a ramp later. Oh, people who are elderly can't afford it. We'll add like 2 houses that they can have. It's not embedded in the planning. And the thing is that everybody, the majority, I feel this way. Most people are either women, seniors, disabled, or children. That's most people in the world. That's most people in metro anywhere. And so why are we not planning for most people? You know, we kind of use this, we kind of put this thing and we kind of go, okay, we look in regards to category, if you look at genders and we're like, okay, we're going to put men in one category and women in another, when actually we should put down people who have power and people who don't have power. And rather than going, oh, we're going to divide it up by gender, we're going to divide it up by race, we're going to divide it up by ethnicity, we're going to divide, because the thing is that if we use people who have power and people who don't have power, the people who don't have power, there's more. And that is kind of how urbanism should really be planned, not this, we need to include historically excluded. We mean you need to include. They need to be. We should like this. We should be saying stuff like, we need to include white men with middle class jobs and suits because we care what they have to say. This also to this very I don't know, it's like this is infantile kind of like I forgot the word, but it's kind of like this like you're talking to people like they're children. Oh, we want to include you. I don't want you to include me. I want to have my own vehicle, and if I can invite you to our vehicle, we mean you're gonna invite me in. Like this, we created this. We created these urban spaces. Like whether you're an artist or you're an immigrant, whether you came in the 1970s or you came in the 1900s or you came as an enslaved person as my ancestors did, we built this. And so this whole like a whole idea like, oh, we need to be inclusive, why are you in charge still? Why are you still in charge?
You're absolutely right. That is a narrative that needs to change. Like instead of it, they're not the majority in the world. Instead of us including everybody else, but planning for white men, it needs to be completely flipped.
Exactly. And I was like, I wasn't even thinking about that. But as I was talking, I'm like, that's the thing. If you own the narrative, you can even own how people talk about urbanism because you own the narrative. And I think this is why they have this thing where they kind of like try to limit women into certain lanes. Because also too, I think women owing we have when we do digital activism, we're so effective. Think about Me Too and Time's Up. I mean, if we got involved in other avenues, like I said, with like urbanism, think about how powerful we can be. Because the thing is that we don't go to like, oh, how can I essentially just use my power to subjugate you? We have to actually have a convincing message. Like you can't, that's not how our world works. Our world doesn't work. I'm going to be mean to you and you're going to do what I say because I have more power than you. In order for us, well, a lot of, I don't want to like generalize, but in like women world, we have to talk to each other. We have to kind of go like, oh, we have to compromise. We have to actually convince people of things. We have to go, you know what? While I don't agree with that, let's meet halfway. You have to. There's no way to get things done if you don't do that. And when we live in houses with grandmas and moms and like sisters and all this stuff, you have to work together. It's not like, oh, you know, papa in charge and like everybody else gotta like kowtow to this person.
You can't it'd be like when I like work in like a management position, like as a manager, like when you take over, you can't just walk in and be like, all right, this is how it's going to be now, because you will lose 75% of your staff. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen as and it's especially women managers that it happens to. Because she gets labeled as a bitch. She gets labeled as a, and they don't even know what that person was told by their superiors coming into this position of how they had maybe had to handle the community of the store or what have you. So you can't do that as a woman. You have to walk into a place and be like, all right, everybody, so my name is so and so and I'm so happy to be your new manager and I really want to sit. You can't just wipe away and do whatever it is that you want. And that's good. Like that, it shouldn't be that way. No one should ever come into a place and just be like, "That's I'm doing it my way," and if you don't like it, you're out of here. But the way that women have to really like suck up and kind of almost brown nose in a way, and if you're not good at that, I'm not good at that. You don't succeed.
Yeah, this is the thing. You have to be very like, oh, how can I? You have to be very much into listening, very much need to be empathetic, very much like you, and like you said, this is not a negative thing. Do we really want people acting like Trump, like who's in charge, who's the manager? Do we really want? We're gonna do it my way, just go through and just burn it all down. This is a horrible thing, and I think that you know, kind of going back to the internet, we think about, you know, I remember when I was online, a lot of people were like, you can't use your real name if you want to stay employed. And I always, in my own head, I always wondered, I noticed that a lot of, guys, unless when guys are kind of like they have a YouTube channel or something like that, they use their real name. When they're trolls, a lot of times they don't use their real name. But I noticed that women who have positions on the internet often have pseudonyms, just because for safety reasons, because of the whole like people doxing you. I mean, I had like a stalker for like literally like 5 years, and had to change my name. And essentially, like you're supposed to give him a restraining order, but you have to serve the restraining order. I know how it works in everywhere, but in California, Los Angeles, you have to serve the person who's trying to like harm you the restraining order. And you have to like hire a person to do it, and then you have to pay them every time they go and try to serve the person. So it's not necessarily like you could pay this person $100 and then they go to the place the person's supposed to be at and the person's not there. And essentially, this was owing to something that happened on the internet. This person wanted to harm me. And was like literally following me around to all kinds of venues when I was in Los Angeles. So, I mean, we kind of have to think about that. I don't know if this is something that guys have to go through in regards to that.
I don't think that they do. And, like I used to use a pseudonym on Facebook, but somebody reported me for using a fake name. And I had to use my government name on Facebook. Like they wouldn't let me have a Facebook anymore. And that, I mean, this is going back probably almost about 9 or 10 years. It was right when I first started dating my husband, because there were some people that didn't like us. But yeah, I had to do that. Like, and I like, I most other spaces I don't use my real name. And I think that you're right. I don't think that men have the same kind of clapback online that women do. For example, like on after Trump got elected, I took everything that was publicly viewable. I took everything that pointed to my politics off that was viewable by the public. And my Facebook is pretty locked down, but you can still view like people's profile pictures and things like that. I took literally everything off. I took what state I lived in off. I took that I was married off. Like I didn't want anybody to know anything about me.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we have to worry about that. And I don't think that, and I think that this is the way things are designed online. They're like, oh, we want you to be transparent. We want you to be honest. But the thing is that when you're a woman and you're transparent and honest, I mean, I think about the other day when we were having a conversation online and someone got upset about something that happened. Anyway, remember the person that I was doing a podcast and now I'm doing a podcast with you. Anyway, they called me 3 times on the phone and they were like, answer the phone. And I was like, whoa, like and I do not think if I was a guy that would have gone down. I don't think a guy
Oh,
called me, texted me 3 times and was like demanding to speak to me because I unfriended him on a social media platform. That to me is aggressive and wild, and this is something that we have to deal with. And the thing is that, as you know, Kimberly, I'm pretty polite online. I'm pretty well, yeah, I don't know. I think I am. I think I'm pretty polite online. And so for people to kind of like respond, and I have people respond in this kind of like anger way. But I think that, I know that you get a lot of pushback and for things that I'm just kind of like that I know that guys don't get pushback for. I
yeah.
know because I've seen I know like guys who just say whatever they want and no one says anything. They never get banned. I had a friend who was a guy who was like, we should, unalive, blah blah. And they didn't say unalive. And it was they got nothing. I was like, oh, they're going to get banned now. No, it's almost like this weird boys club within these digital spaces. And I don't even, they're like saying, well, how do we, the future of inclusive spaces, like how do we make like, how do we make the internet, because to actually, for me, the internet is part of the commons. It's part of something that we all own, that we all should share. And they're like, well, we should have diverse hiring practices, we should have feminist design principles. But I just feel like, again, it's this, oh, we need to include you like as patchwork. And I feel like it's the same thing with like the urbanism in regards to urbanism. Like I feel like feminist urbanism should be the root of how we plan. It shouldn't be like, oh, it's this added thing. It should be the way that we're planning, and also should be the way that we're speaking about media. Like I feel that so many times this media, I think it's probably because of who funds it. Developers for urbanist media, most of the time it's developers, banks, people who want areas to be gentrified. So they don't want to fund feminist urbanism because that is going to like impact their money, because that's like, oh, well, we can't. And it's not even about money. It's about power. It's like, I want power people to be in this space, and I want to make it so that if you work in this space, you should understand that you're going to be subjugated and you're going to be working for us. And I think this is why urbanism continues to not work out in the United States, because it doesn't understand that urbanism is a theory that demands that you share. It demands you be pro-social. It demands that you view your person who lives next to you as a human being, as your neighbor. You can't be exclusionary. You can't be sexist. You can't be racist. You can't, because you have to take the bus with people. You got to take the train with people. You can't go, I don't want to sit next to this. You'll never be sitting down then. You're never going to sit down because you're going to see everybody.
Yes. And I think that, I mean, personally, like what I have done, is, because I feel that like in the online spaces, I feel like, and I had a conversation with my brother about this a couple of weeks ago. A lot of like boomer age men don't view their interactions online as real. They don't see it as realistic. They don't see it as like a common space. It's just a thing that they post jokes or post memes, maybe get a like or two, throw a nasty comment out every so often and move on. So what I have done lately is a lot of these boomer age white men that like to say really racist and sexist things online that aren't bots also have all of their information public, including who their wife is, who their mother is, and where they work. And they will very quickly crawl back into their spaces when you take a screenshot of where they work and post it in the comment section and say, oh, okay, I think that you might be violating your corporate social media policy with this. And I think that your job would like to know. And I have, in fact, messaged wives and sent them screenshots of what their husband has said. And I don't usually hear back. I don't expect to, but I sure hope that there's an argument on the other end of that.
This is kind of things that we kind of have to do. I think that is the thing. I think about in Germany, if you insult people online, it's actually, you can get fined for that. You can't just go around just saying whatever you want to say. And I think that there needs to be some kind of consequence. But I think the United States is very much into like freedom to shoot people, freedom to call people whatever you want, freedom to talk about people like their dogs. And this is not, I feel like we need to like essentially promote some kind of pro-social framework. When we are dealing with a common space like the internet, we should view the internet as a common space that we all have to take care of, and rather than viewing it as a toilet that we view it as like this toilet that we just and when we're done we just flush it. It's like, no, that's not what it is. This is our water. This is our water system. This is our cleaning system. We need to take care of it. I think this is how we should view the internet, rather than, oh, it's just a corporate toilet space. So we just, do our business and then it's gone. It's not gone. Like, even when you do actually use your toilet, it's not gone. I don't know why I'm using that as an analogy. It's really disgusting. But,
It makes sense. It makes sense. There is like I think in like I when I have conversations with my stepson, because he is a young man and he's coming up in a world that is vastly different from the one that I grew up in. And, the things that I see online and comment spaces and things like that, I talk with my stepson about it. And I am like, do you see why, like, this is like wrong, And like, we talk about it. And I think that a good way to get young men to understand what they're doing and how they're hurting people is, I think that they can role play comment sections with one another and say those things out loud to one another and see how it actually feels.
I think that's a good idea. I think it's something that, we should institute in junior high, high school, and even college. Could like that needs to be like, oh, look at this comment section. Is this okay to you? Where we go to Instagram or TikTok and just kind of like say, like, is this okay? And then just kind of like let people aware. I think some people aren't even aware of stuff. And it's like I don't even know if people are worse now than they were before because they didn't have any documented. When you were horrible in the 90s, there was no proof. But now we have documentation.
You also got punched in the face. And like, I'm not advocating for violence at every turn. However, when I was growing up, people didn't say shit like that to you to your face because they would be immediate consequences.
That's what happened to me. I said something one time at a bar and someone punched me. And I have to say, it was justified. I'm not saying you should don't go around punching people because now, back then, you didn't go to jail for stuff like that. Now, yeah, you just
No,
punched and you just moved on.
you can, and that's something that like I've talked with my husband about like the downfall of the bar fight of like two guys or two girls that could get into an argument, take it outside, slap each other around. Okay, let's go back in and get a beer. And like that was the end of it.
Yeah, that was the end of it. And it was like, okay, fine. And I think it's that the person still talks to me now, but it was just like weird because I said something and it was totally out of pocket. And I was just like, oh, oops. And that's how I got hit. But it was like, yeah, we moved on. It wasn't like anger. It was weird. People get more angry about stuff online than they did back then. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I guess because it's there and it just sits there and you can sit and fixate on it. And whereas when you're like say something in person, it just kind of like vanishes, disappears, and whatever. And like when you see it online, it's like you could sit there and fixate on it. And this is something. I mean, this is something we need to do because I'm not do, but something we need to work on. Whether in regards to like I always keep talking about pro-sociality, and this is so important to me, just like working on techniques on how to cooperate, how to get along with people, how to care for people, how to understand this is a common space and we should all have rules and expectations, not because we'll get in trouble, but because we need to work together to create a better world. And it's actually possible, but we have to first like each other. And to like each other, you have to not hate each other. And to not hate each other, you got to start by not saying really mean, out of pocket stuff that's unnecessary for no reason.
And I think sadly that the Trump administration part one really emboldened people to just say whatever they want to, mostly online, because you see he's been like the most online president. He makes policy decisions through Twitter or Truth Social or what have you. And that's emboldened and empowered a lot of people to feel like they can do the same.
Exactly. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. And kind of like say, we are here, we created this feminist urbanist space so that we can talk about urbanism through a feminist urbanist lens. Also, please subscribe to our channel. Please subscribe to our channel and, check out our blog because every week, Monday through Friday, we're going to have a word of the day. I call it the fun word of the day or the feminist urbanist word of the day. So please, stay tuned and all that kind of good stuff.
Thanks so much for listening.
Okay, bye.